Hi, my name is Pat Moorehead, and I'm here at the National Skydiving Museum Reunion and Hall of Fame presentation on the 11th of October in 2014, and we're here to tell you our story.
And I'm Alicia Moorehead, same place, same date, and I have, being so much younger than Pat,
Hey.
I have lesser stories, so he'll start.
Well, my story, I started jumping in 1969. I was old when I started, is what I tell people. I started I was 37 years old in 1969, and I started at Elsinore, California, which at that time was one of the premier drop zones in skydiving, had quite a reputation. I was a firefighter at the time, and a bunch of us from the fire station went out to jump just to see what this skydiving was all about. We had seen something on our 17-inch black and white television in the fire station and decided we'd go try this out. So I made 2 jumps the first day, both of them static line from 2,800 feet out of a Howard, which was the jump plane of choice at Elsinore in those days, along with a Twin Beach and a small Cessna. If someone had told me then that someday, up to now, I would be still jumping in my 80s and have over 6,400 jumps, I would have said, you must be crazy, because that's impossible, both those things. As it turns out, that's where we are. My career has mostly been involvement with the United States Parachute Association and the Parachutist Over 40 Society, which I'll get to in a minute along with Alicia. However, I can tell you that we established a very professional skydiving show team called the California Aerial Circus in 1972. We've traveled all over the world, Mexico, the Caribbean, downtown Tokyo, all over the United States for air shows and market openings and car dealerships. And we're still around, and we still do things occasionally, but we insist that our particular presentations are showy, that if we don't jump for ourselves, we jump for the spectators. My claim to fame, I guess I have 2. I would like to say, and I'm very proud of the fact that I established an organization called Skydivers Over 60. That was in 1992 to celebrate my 60th birthday. We now have, and by the way, Skydivers Over 60 is a sub-part of POPS, because POPS is a major organization of the older skydivers. And by the way, POPS started in 1966, and at that time, if you were 40, you were a POP. So Skydivers Over 60 now has over 1,900 members, approaching 2,000 members at this date, and has donated over $20,000 to the U.S. Parachute Team Trust Fund, and that's one thing, that's a pledge we made in the beginning in 1992. All the dues and sales of T-shirts and of patches and so on go to the Team Trust Fund. In addition, we've given $5,000 to the National Skydiving Museum and significant amounts of money to the AAD Fund, Airport Defense Fund. And so we're very proud of that from the standpoint of the SOS. And the other claim to fame, I'll just mention briefly, to celebrate my 80th birthday, we assembled a team of over 50 people with the help of Jay Stokes, a world record holder for the number of skydives in a 24-hour period. And we had 50 people backing me up, and I celebrated my 80th birthday by making 81 jumps in 6 hours and 37 minutes. And in addition, we did 15 practice jumps the day before. I always like to throw that in because that was a total of 96 jumps that weekend. It was a wonderful time. It was a great time. We used the Cessna. We exited from 2,200 feet. And out of 96 jumps, all the landings were stand-up except for a couple. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm looking forward to my 85th birthday so I can make 85 jumps on that birthday. I think that's enough about Pat Moorehead for now. I'd like to, I would like to say about Alicia. Alicia and I met on a Twin Otter in 1984 on the 17th of November, flying from Los Angeles down to Ensenada, Mexico to a Mexican Air Force base for an R&R play-around weekend hosted by the Mexican Air Force. And we plopped our butts down on the floor of this Twin Otter in Long Beach, California. We chatted all the way to Mexico. We jumped in. That night we took a walk on the beach, and we've been together ever since. And I mean ever since that night. That was the beginning, and here we are still 30 years later.
30 years this year.
You're on.
I began my skydiving career at the world famous at the time Hinckley Parachute Center outside of Chicago. And I didn't know anything about skydiving at the time. I was at the university nearby in DeKalb, and I saw a poster on the board and it said come and skydive. So I went there, and I started my training in March, but because of the weather, the winds, and Chicago climate, I didn't make my first jump until May. So I was there every single weekend from March till May saying, can I jump, can I jump, can I jump? And finally, on May 5th, I got to jump. So just in case I was going to get grounded again, I made 2 jumps that day. And by the end of the week, I think I made 7 because I was afraid they were going to ground me again. Anyway, I did those successfully and decided I wanted to make more.
As a matter of fact, I think both of us made 7 jumps right away, and in those days, you could be released from student status as soon as they thought you were ready, and we were both ready after 7 jumps.
We were. We were.
And you started when? 1978?
In 1978,
Oh.
I started. So I jumped all summer long, and I was jumping in basically a cornfield, being a city girl, I didn't know how high corn grew, and I kept landing in the corn. Well, that became discouraging. Loved the skydiving, hated the corn. So then it became cold, and not liking Chicago winters, to make a long story short, I moved to California, where they didn't have snow and didn't have winters, and that was great, so I could continue skydiving. During my skydiving career, and I have 3,000 jumps, much of my attention has been with the Pops, and the Parachutists Over 40, and now the Skydivers Over 60. Little did I know when I saw the first ceremony in Hinckley of someone being inducted into the Pops that I would be so involved as I am today. I became the top Pop of the United States in the early 90s, and I believe to this day I've signed up more Pops than any other top Pop has. And then I became involved in the World Pops organization, which really excited me because I've always loved travel. I lived in Australia for several years. I traveled around the world after Australia on my own for another year, so anything internationally got my attention. So I worked with the World Top, I became the World Top Pop #2 in the mid-90s and planned world Pops parachute meets. And we're still involved with that.
What was the one you specifically, the one in Jordan and the one in Canada?
I helped, helped organize the Jordan. We met in Aqaba, Jordan, and then the Chilliwack, Canada world meet. And now, currently, I'm the Pops record administrator, meaning that whenever Pops records are set and the application is filled out worldwide, I certify it, the record, and make the certificates that are presented to each of the participants in that particular record. Last year, in 2013, in the beginning of last year, we started a new award, and that's the Pops sequential records, and that has been very popular. So we're continuing to evolve and having fun with it, and the best part of it is keeping people jumping that thought that they had quit, but they've come back and they are jumping. So that's my fun.
Well, for both of us, I think I'd like to accentuate that a little bit. There was some question about what do we see for the future of skydiving. We both very strongly believe that Pops and Skydivers Over 60 and Jumpers Over 70 and Jumpers Over 80 Society and even JON, Jumpers Over 90, we think all of those create a goal for jumpers as they progress through the sport. And I remember in the bad old days when nobody wanted to admit to being 40, and I can tell you that now that we have Skydivers Over 60 and 70 and so on, people send their applications in 2 months before to make sure they get in as soon as they possibly can. So I think that what Alicia and I are doing for our sport is encouraging people to not only continue in the sport, because we've given them goals, both with Alicia's program of awarding certificates and records, and the sequential things she created last year in 2013, but also this organization of Skydivers Over 60 and the others I mentioned. These goals now are there for people who maybe became a little bit disillusioned with skydiving. Maybe they thought they were too old to compete with the young hot dog guys that are flying around upside down and so on and so forth. And they show up at this particular event, for instance, and they see, you know, there's a lot of older people still having great fun, and there is a future for them in our sport. So I think that would be our comment about what do we see for the future and how we intend to continue to promote and encourage people to keep jumping out of perfectly good airplanes as long as they're physically able. I know that neither one of us have any intention of quitting. I can't think of any reason I would quit unless physically maybe that would happen, but who knows. It's all about history.